Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the most overpowered Vex build in Borderlands 4. Now this is going to be extremely powerful in the future DLCs, and we're not using any glitches here to get the massive amounts of damage. As you can see there, the health bar is getting deleted really quickly, and this is due to some interactions in the game. Most notably, any weapon that has torgue stickies. This one here can increase the damage for every explosion by 13% each. This becomes crazy with the witchy trigger finger from our green skill tree here, which allows us to regenerate our full ammunition whenever we use our action skill. And then later on, whenever we can use our current health for the action skill, this becomes crazy. Furthermore, we also got some pretty powerful abilities with certain class mods, like empowering our sniper shots with the Undead Eye class mod here. This one also increases kinetic and sniper rifle damage, so you can imagine it gets pretty crazy because bloodshot takes your current health and adds it to the shots of the damage. So with the Timekeeper's new shield, which adds your maximum health upwards, and then also with some certain skills that reduce the amount of damage that we take by 20% plus the other 33%, we become extremely tanky with a ton of lifesteal, and we can one-shot bosses. We can spec around bloodshot and go all in on like sniper rifles with that class mod, or we can really use any type of weapon here because we got some pretty powerful abilities to add our lifesteal damage on top of our gun damage. This also works really well with the stray, and we don't even really have to aim while using this gun, and the bod, which counts as a sniper rifle, so it gets all the benefits of being a sniper rifle, like triggering the Undead Eye class mod, so this becomes absolutely crazy really quickly. But this build can also utilize just normal red or purple and blue gear well too. Starting off at levels 1 through 5 or 6 here, so the leeching attunement, this is what I think to be the best, but we're locked into using kinetic-based weapons. Some people really don't like that. You can use the Grave Sights here, which will increase your critical hit damage with a kill skill, which is actually a pretty nice ability if you're going to be going around critical hits. My personal preference is using the leeching attunement because I just think this is really good to get that 10% lifesteal on our kinetic damage, and some of the best guns in the game are kinetic-based, so that's perfect. Now, once we get to here, the Energy Vampire and Geist Wave, I personally like the Geist Wave a little bit more. It adds dealing ordnance damage to enemies that it passes through with our phase explosions when we activate our action skill. So you can use this to kind of make your action skill more of a nuke when you activate it. Otherwise, the Energy Vampire is also pretty nice. No real preference between the two of those until we get down a little bit later. My next choice here is the Bloodletter. So gun and skill critical hits have a chance to apply bleed, causing kinetic status effect damage for a duration. This becomes pretty crazy. They are going to be patching this because it can, if you get a critical hit on your bleeds will crit and continue growing and growing, so they become absolutely crazy, but that will get patched, so this is not something I'm focusing on for the build, but the bleed damage is still nice nonetheless. If you didn't want that, the Grave Implements works well too, increasing our gun damage by 20%, and you can get up to 60% extra damage from this, which is actually pretty crazy, but it's a kill skill, so you do have to take out enemies. And then for our levels 10 through 15, I like material components here, so getting increased kinetic damage and kinetic status effect damage. Again, the best guns in the game are kinetic damage, so this just makes a good choice because 35% extra damage and a 20% increased bleed damage. And like the others, I'll give it a choice for some of the other options. Since we took 2 kill skills here, if you didn't go with these options, Great Power will increase the max stacks, which then makes the gun damage go upwards of 6 stacks, and that's 120% extra gun damage. It becomes pretty crazy. So I like that one, and then taking the target pre-signs. But these 3 are the best in my opinion. This gets us to our best augment in the game with the witchy trigger finger. So dealing damage with Eldritch Blast or Phase Explosion will fully refill the ammo of our current gun. I have issues with getting the Phase Explosion to refill the ammo, so just a heads up on that. And this also grants a stack of witchy trigger finger, increasing gun damage for a duration. That's 15% per stack, 3 stacks, so 45% extra gun damage. That does stack with a Grade of Influence, which becomes pretty crazy. But this is really good because it refills your gun, and as shown with torgue stickies, that can explode and take out bosses almost immediately. Now, I actually think it's best to go into our right-hand side skill tree here. Now, I like the Ars Arcana here, which will increase the skill damage by 45%. So that's our Eldritch Blast increasing in damage. They already do quite a bit of damage, and especially once we get a little bit later on, these can be very powerful. And it also got recently buffed to be even more powerful. However, if we're going to go all in on like Bloodshot, which will take our current health, this is the best choice here because this increases our maximum health capacity with the Grave Vitality. So this can give us upwards of 90% extra health, which is crazy. This does require us to take out enemies to grant that extra stacks, but if we're going to go, it really depends if you're going to use the Timekeeper's new shield and go all in on Bloodshot. If you're not, go with Ars Arcana. This will boost up our Eldritch Blast. So again, another choice here because some people like to prefer to play a little differently. Now, I really like the Bloodshot here. So whenever we use a Repkit, our next gunshot will become a Bloodshot, converting damage dealt into kinetic damage and dealing bonus damage based on our current health. So this is really crazy in terms of the output of damage that you can do. You do have to use a Repkit. However, there is a class mod a little bit later on that will be really good for this because then it'll allow you to trigger it naturally. And you can also get a class mod that gives you a +5 to this. That's my preference. I don't have it currently. I have a better one, or one that's a little bit different and works for this build, just different roles. But you can get 100% of your current health added onto your shots, which is crazy. Now, I also like to grab the Essence Leech here. So I previously experimented with only taking 1 or 2 stacks of this, but I found that this was actually really good because this gives us 10% lifesteal. When we have our action skill active, that's doubled, so that becomes pretty good. But then we also get the blood is power, so we get bonus kinetic damage with our guns based on our current lifesteal when our health is full. And we're going to have pretty full health with this, trust me on that. Getting 10% from this, 10% from this, and then it's 30% total when you have your action skill active, and then converting 300% of that, so it's a 60% boost to our overall damage. Pretty crazy. Now, this is where the build comes together with the Heart Piercer. Since this will sacrifice our health, not a big deal because we regenerate it so quickly. What becomes a piercing wave, so our Eldritch Blast can pierce through enemies. Enemies hit, take damage, and allies restore health. So you can actually heal your team with this too, which is kind of cool if you're playing with friends. Grants bonus damage and healing based on sacrificed health. So you do bonus damage based on 150% of your health. So the higher we get our health, the more we sacrifice our health, the more damage we deal. This actually is really crazy. And it also gives you health restoration when you hit enemies, as you normally would get. So when you lose health but gain it back extremely quickly, this is by far the best capstone for this skill tree. And I'd actually, at this point, recommend grabbing a few more points of bloodshot, but I actually like to go into this skill tree. The Hasty Fiends is such a good ability. Not often do you find movement speed in a skill tree, so 50% is great, but it's the damage reduction that's really nice. So that 20%, it stacks with the 33% that we get from our shield, so we can actually block quite a bit of damage. And this is really nice because when we have lifesteal, we can become immortal with that. And then you can also go into the blue skill tree here and grab Fell Inscriptions, which gives you maximum health capacity, which is really nice. Alternatively, you can continue on into the green skill tree and then take our points in Bloodshot here. I just think that Bloodshot is really effective, and the higher damage that we can get from it, I think the better. The rest of the skill tree here don't really give us a massive benefit, so you could take the 5 points of this to get 45% more damage on our Eldritch Blast, which I do think is a nice choice, especially since it's going to add extra damage from our sacrificed health. At this point, though, I do like to go grab Fell Inscriptions, because this will give us 30% maximum health and 35% melee damage, which is not really something we care about, but the extra health is converted to more damage overall. Like, the rest of these in the blue skill tree don't really make a whole lot of sense, but I do like to take the red skill tree, the enchantment here. So we gain bonus kinetic damage with guns when our action skill is active, and we can keep our action skill active pretty much non-stop. So that's a 37.5% boost to our overall damage, which is really nice. And it's bonus kinetic damage. So the bonus kinetic damage is nice because it's added on top of the extra damage that we do get. Now, if you really like swapping weapons, so whenever you have kinetic damage out, you get 6 seconds of lifesteal. You can swap weapons, and this will actually extend the duration by 7% per stack. So that's kind of nice because it'll extend our attunement time from 6 seconds upwards of I guess it's more like 8-9 seconds. But I prefer Ars Arcana again, because getting that 27% extra skill damage is nice, since we can spam our Heart Piercer, getting extra health back. And of course, as mentioned earlier, our class mod Undead Eye is extremely good. And I got a really good roll on this with plus 40% kinetic damage and plus 45% sniper rifle damage. And as mentioned, that counts as the bod, because the bod counts as a sniper shotgun. So that becomes crazy, and it will trigger this ability here. And Bloodshot, as mentioned, is going to add our health onto the damage, which becomes crazy when we have the Timekeeper's new shield. This puts our health bar at currently 17,634. I'm blocking it right now, but that also increases upwards of 90% whenever we get a bunch of kills because of our previous class mod, or from our previous ability here, the Grey Vitality. So that's 90% extra health. This then empowers our shots really greatly. This is a really good roll, but you can get 5 points of extra into Bloodshot, and that'd be the best roll for this, but this is the best I currently have. High Caliber is also really good. This makes your bullets pierce enemies, and we can do some pretty crazy stuff with certain guns. And as mentioned, Timekeeper's new shield, I think this is the best. However, there's a couple really good options too that I think are a bit underrated. This reduces damage taken by 33%, which does stack with the 20%, so it's 53% reduction in damage taken. This allows us to recover our health a little bit more efficiently. You can also use some of the other shields. And actually another class mod that I do like is the Teen Witch class mod. With the Teen Witch, this allows you to get shield and overshield from lifesteal, and it adds an additional 10% life shield. So if you don't want to use a sniper rifle, just use this and swap off of the Timekeeper's new shield, because those two work really well together. But you can also use Watts for dinner. This will drop overshield, and with the Teen Witch, you get overshield often, but this will add 25% bonus damage to your attacks, which is really crazy. I also really think the Protein Cell works great here. This is a shield that a lot of people like to dunk on, but it's really good. 40% bonus shock damage when you activate it. You activate it by doing a ground slam, and then damage you take will go through your shield, which is fine when we're actually restoring our own health really quickly with lifesteal. So this is another really good shield. I just think the Timekeeper's new shield is the best by far. The best enhancement is going to be one that gives you the increased Jacob's License bounces, ricochets to the bounce pass there, increasing the amount of ricochets by 1. This is a big boost of damage on certain guns like the Stray. If you get a bod with the Jacob's license property, the Queen's Rest, which I showed off earlier, just really, really effective. The critical hit knife will still be the best choice for this build. I'm not going to deny its power, but I also like the Slippy. Since we do get a boost to our melee damage, this makes this a little bit stronger. And you can also get one with Lifesteal built in. This one has the Lifeblood there, which will give us increased Repkit healing. Not really great, but the life, if you can get 2 of the Lifeblood and 3 high caliber, that would be most optimal because it'll give you even further Lifesteal, which then again boosts our gun damage. And the best Repkit is going to be the triple bypass. I like this one, or I like the one that I had equipped here, because this one will give you overshield, so you can actually trigger some different abilities here. But we're mostly going to be using this for the now with caffeine specialization, which we'll get into in a moment. Now, guns, I really like the Stray. I think it's my favorite gun in the game. It will shoot out 2 bullets that home in on enemies, so you don't even really have to aim, but you can still aim and get some headshots off with this because they'll chain to multiple enemies. Really powerful, triggers bloodshot, it's great. Now, I mentioned the bod because this counts as every single type of gun. And what's crazy, if you get an enhancement or anything that increases gun damage by 20%, this actually stacks 5 times, so it's an extra 100% damage on the bod. So that becomes crazy because it counts as 5 guns kind of built into one. It's absurd. But we want to find guns that have the torgue license sticky magazine. This becomes really crazy, especially on this gun, because every bullet that you shoot is going to increase the damage by 3% each. This shoots 5 bullets, so if you hit all 5 of them, that's 15% extra damage. And then every time you shoot that, it's going to increase the overall damage output. If you get, again, Witchy Trigger Finger to stack that up, this can one-shot bosses. You don't have to get this on the bod. This can work on even a blue gun. If you get torque stickies, use them. I really like the Queen's Rest for this. This one increases them by 13% each, 8-round magazine, so you shoot 7 times, use your Witchy Trigger Finger and shoot again, and then keep shooting until you reload your gun and takes it to the boss, usually at that point. I'm also a big fan of the Katagawa's Revenge. You can get it with the Jacob's License accessory. It just does fire and shock damage. Great for bossing. It does huge damage. The shock being a little bit more effective as it leaves a little jellyfish behind that shocks people. Wombo Combo is another great gun for dealing with vile enemies. I personally like the GMR as it doesn't have elements on it. It has high damage. It's fully automatic and it'll critically hit and chain to multiple enemies. Plasma Coil I also quite enjoy. The King's Gambit is pretty good too because you shoot this gun, loses bullets quickly. So using your Witchy Trigger Finger is great. TK's Wave, insane DPS, especially you can get an underbarrel that's going to make all particles or all of the bullets home in on the target. That is really good too. And the Hot Slugger, it's one of the best guns in the game. And as for our specializations, the best defense actually makes sense here, since whenever we have full health, we get 30% extra gun damage. That's massive, so that's really nice to have. The Now with Caffeine, as mentioned, is super good because when we use our Repkit, we get 25% of our action skill cooldown back, and you can get that 3 times. The I Am a Gun is also really nice. Action skill damage is 50% of the gun damage. So with this, you can boost up your Eldritch Blast if you'd like to. Alternatively, I do like to take the Riddle You This instead if you don't care that much about Eldritch Blast. You can increase your gun damage by 50%. Groundbreaker is also quite nice. We do have a slight boost to our melee damage, so whenever we deal damage to the enemy, we can then go into a melee attack or a slam, and it'll deal a bunch of bonus damage. It's really good right now, but it'll probably get nerfed, so if you want something a little bit different, you can re-equip the I Am a Gun, but Bullet Train is good too because this increases your gun damage by 15% when you're moving, and you can hip fire, sprint, and deal damage. Now, when it comes to combat, we want to be applying these stickies on there and then reloading our gun and keeping them on. As kind of mentioned at the start of this will also chain around whenever you hit them with a headshot, so you can actually get this applied to multiple enemies at a time. It's crazy powerful because that's increasing the damage every single one of these that we have on there, and the critical hits will make a chain onto the ground there, so that's also crazy. The critical hit knife is really easy for using on this build because that'll also make every one of these stack, and you can see there the health bar of this boss got depleted almost instantly when we reloaded our gun once. And sniper rifle is a lot quicker and easier. You just hold down the trigger and aim at them. You'll get enough life steal to sustain yourself through even the most devastating attacks. I was getting hit there with some heavy damage over time, but our health bar is not even budging really here. And just every single time that we take on an extra enemy, that's going to give us further increased maximum health capacity, so that just gets even crazier. The damage output from this is nuts, and it's extremely tanky. You get the best life steal that I've ever seen in a Borderlands game. The damage output from this is nuts too, and if you get the critical hit knife, that obviously it escalates the amount of damage. The piercing rounds that you can get on this is crazy too, because if you can get a headshot through an enemy, sometimes it'll hit the boss twice. This was a big problem that was in Borderlands 2, and I've found it with a few different bosses here where you can actually get the bullets to pierce and hit the enemy multiple times. But yeah, it's a very powerful build utilizing a sniper rifle or really any gun that you want, because you're going to get life steal off anything. And if you're swapping, you can take out a ballistic gun, swap your elemental gun, waste off the bullets, and then swap back and you'll keep your attunement. You can see the attunement beside the health bar there. So hope this video is useful, and if it was, please hit the subscribe button below. Hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you all in the next one.